Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started. Grab a seat. Hope you got some refreshments. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Welcome to our 2015 Madison Mayoral Forum. My name is Molly Stentz. I'm with WORT Community Radio here in Madison, and we're very happy. Oh, thank you. And we're very happy to sponsor this forum ahead of the primary, along with our community partners here at Fountain of Life Covenant Church, Dane County NAACP, Race to Equity Project, the Coalition of Wisconsin Aging Groups. We are very pleased to have all of you here tonight. So we've got a great forum. Here's how it's going to work. Each panelist will ask a question of each of our candidates, and the candidates will each have a minute to respond. We'll start with opening statements, 2 minutes for each of the candidates. I also want to let you know we do have a sign language interpreter here available for your use. So and there's some seats reserved near the front if anyone would like. Please come on up. So let me introduce our panel. To my right is Erica Nelson. Erica is the program director with the Race to Equity Project. Many of you know she coordinated the publication of the Race to Equity report, which I think opened the eyes of many here in Madison about the racial disparities that we face. Next to Erica is Reverend Dr. Alex G. Many of you know Alex is the pastor here at Fountain of Life, also the president and founder of the Nehemiah Center for Urban Leadership Development and the Justified Anger Coalition, and our host tonight. Thank you. And then we have on the end Nino Amato. Nino is the vice president of the Dane County chapter of the NAACP and also the president of the Coalition of Wisconsin Aging Groups. So those are your panelists this evening who will be asking questions. We will have audience participation following the panelists' questions, and we're taking your questions online as well at our website, WORT-FM.org. We are broadcasting live over the radio, so welcome to all our radio listeners and anyone viewing on our website right now, and welcome to all of you. So now we will start with our candidates. We have all 5 candidates running for office here tonight, and we drew numbers out of a cup to determine who would go first. So we are using a democratic process, and we determined that Christopher Daly will start us off with introductions for the evening. Christopher.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Fountain of Life Church and everyone for being here. Yeah, I was the lucky number 1. So, a little bit about myself. I've lived in Madison for 7 years. I graduated from the UW about 2 years ago. And I really love this place. I found a lot of amazing people here, and I found that this is a city which has per capita the most intelligent and compassionate citizens of anywhere that I've been. For the last few months, I've been involved in numerous activist events and actions, and it's taken me a few years to really get a good bearing on where we are as a society today. I used to work on the Capitol Square, and every day I would step outside and I would see people living on the street. And it really stuck in my head. I wanted to know how they got there. I wanted to know what we weren't doing and what we could do better. And that was really the impetus for me to run. In the process, like many of my generation, I have been cynical in the past. I've said there's no use in paying attention to this vitriolic, dichotomous politics. And a few, and for a long time that was true, but one day I reached a tipping point, and I decided that I had to get involved. I had to speak up, and I had to speak out, and I had to go out on the streets, and I had to get other people involved, and that's really my passion, and that's why I'm here tonight. And well, thank you again.
Thanks. We'll move down the line next to Paul Soglin.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank just everyone who's helping to sponsor and put this forum together, and especially those of you who are attending or watching. In January of 2007, having unfortunately lost an election for mayor in 2003, I asked to address one of the civic clubs here in Madison because I was very concerned, and I don't know if this chart is clear to everyone, but this chart reflects, not at all, okay. This chart reflects the growth and the number of children receiving free and reduced lunches in the city of Madison. During my previous tenure as mayor, that number had increased at about 5%, 6% over a 7-year, 8-year period. And then, at that time in 2007, it had really escalated. And I was deeply concerned that we were not paying attention to the growing poverty in Madison. And as you know, I again decided to run for mayor 4 years later in 2011, saying we had to deal with the city's financial problems so that we can then tackle the problems of poverty and equity. We've now got data that shows what's happened in the 2 full years where we've had an opportunity to budget and make changes in Madison. We have a long way to go, but from 2011 to 2013, we have had significant progress in closing disparity in unemployment and in income. I'd like 4 more years to work with you to further this job.
Thank you, Paul. Richard.
Hello, my name is Richard Brown. I want to thank everybody. A lot of people know me around here. I want to be your mayor. I really, really want to be the mayor. And I've been working hard for the last 30 years trying to help this community. And you know, my fiscal background, I worked for the Legislative Audit Bureau as an auditor, business manager at Mendota Mental Health Institution. And then I became the director of operation at Mendota Mental Health Institution. And then I became a budget analyst over the DD centers, all the DD centers over the state. Southern Wisconsin Center, Northern Wisconsin Center, and Wisconsin. I'm in Southern Wisconsin, Northern, and Central Wisconsin Center. And then I became an accountant for DPI, Department of Public Instructions. A Title I accountant, No Child Left Behind. So I got your education, I got the strong fiscal. And then in the community while I was doing all this, I coached the football team, 8 years for the Southside Raiders. Some of your babies, I coached them. And then after that, I went to the high school and I coached at the high school. And I just seen 2 kids get scholarships that was kicked off the team that I coached to get back on. And now they're going to St. Cloud in Minnesota. This is what I do. And I want to help this community. I've been doing a lot of things in this community, and I love this community. You know, I got awarded in 2011 a J.C. Wright Humanitarian Award. And then also, I gave you Let's Go to Church in Heart and Soul. I personally paid for that out of my pockets. And what I'm trying to say is that I've done everything that I could do. And our racial disparities are not better. We got 1,000 babies that's homeless in our school. I don't know what Paul's talking about, because when he started, it was only 700 and something. So these are our babies. We got to do something. And that's why I'm running for mayor, to do something.
Thank you. All right, now we'll move on to Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott Resnick. I look at a motto that I came into office with 4 years ago on the city council, how I lead my business. I am committed to your success. It's how I work every interaction in my life. And I look at this city, our city. It's a community that we're supposed to be able to engage in, a place that's supposed to listen to us, and it's a place that's supposed to benefit us. This is a great progressive community. I look at it, and it's the reason why I came here for school. And my father worked 2 jobs so he could make sure that he could cover a little bit of my tuition. My mother still works 3 jobs today. And I was able to afford certain opportunities. Out of school, I was able to start a company. We now employ 22 people. 4 years ago, I was able to run for public office, and as the youngest member of the city council, I was able to be elected into leadership. But what I know is not everybody in this community shares in those opportunities. We have major struggles. Richard acknowledged that over 1,000 students are homeless in the Madison School District. 75% of our students of color are in poverty. We have individuals that are sleeping outside of our doorsteps of City Hall, not for any other reason, but we don't have the political will to find housing for them. That's a moral failing of our community. I think that we need to look at fresh leadership, new ideas. We need to step up and continue the conversation, but not let us forget what are the true values and compassion of our community. I think that we need to listen, we need to respect one another, and we need to work together, because I know that we can accomplish so much more. I know we can live up to those values and make Madison a great place for everyone to live.
Thank you. Bridget.
Great, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. I'm Bridget Maniaci. I was the 2nd District Alder for 4 years, representing James Madison Park, Tenney Park, Mansion Hill, part of State Street. Very proudly represented also Salvation Army and a number of service providers in our community that are doing fantastic work. One of the things that I saw in my district was the dynamic interaction of a neighborhood where you had everything from fraternity and sorority students to $1 million lakefront mansions, and 3 blocks away you had the Women and Children's Shelter. I loved that neighborhood. It's very much Jane Jacobs Sidewalk Ballet. And I was on the city council. I had interned for Mayor Cheslevich my last year of college and had gotten my feet wet in City Hall, actually starting 10 years ago as a young college journalist. Came into City Hall and got handed some of the toughest issues any alder could be facing with the Edgewater, and looking at the redevelopment of East Washington Avenue, the Don Miller car dealership lot. GM had just pulled the dealership. Madison Dairy, Land O'Lakes had just closed the butter plant, and I had to get to work and roll up my sleeves. I was very proud of what we were able to accomplish in that neighborhood, really working together. I'm here today, I'm running for mayor because I'm displeased at what I've seen in the mayor's office with the leadership. I have had constituents who have been very frustrated with the experience in City Hall. And if you want to see things change, you have to step up and run. The protests in 2011 showed me that very directly. You cannot just assume that good people are going to be there. So I'm running today to have pragmatic, real ideas of how very quickly we can start to move things forward. I'm sure we're going to discuss at length, but if you got one of those little yellow slips after the debate, please look on my website. There's a lot of really good detailed policy because I just got my master's in public policy and management, so I'm a big policy wonk, so I try to put a lot up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. So thank you to all of our candidates for joining us here. For anyone just tuning in, welcome to the mayoral debate here at Fountain of Life Church on Badger Road. Come on down, we've got a full house here, or send us your questions online at WORT-FM.org. Now we're gonna turn to our panelists. On my right is Ms. Erica Nelson. Erica.
Good evening. So here's my first question. For all of us who have looked closely at the county's severe racial and ethnic disparities, realize it will take bold action by all sectors, public, private, nonprofit, and community, to solve this problem? Given that, what do you think are the most important roles and the most important actions that the City of Madison should pursue over the next 4 years to address this problem?
And we'll start this time at the end with Paul Soglin.
In terms of goals, they are to see measurable differences in regards to household income, unemployment, academic achievement, health measurements, and simply opportunity for all Madisonians. How are we going to achieve it? We're going to achieve it the way we've done it before. And I want to be very clear, and I wish this chart had been more visible before, but the point is, when I was mayor in the 1990s, we did something about this and we got it under control. This problem deteriorated after I left office, and for the first time in 20 years, it's the actions that my administration took over the last 3.5 years that has changed, by putting together the neighborhood resource teams, by cutting $17 million that wasn't necessary for a hotel so that we could do some of the things like investing in cooperatives, investing in Allied Drive, in food, in opportunity for employment and training.
Thank you. Richard Brown.
Thank you. Well, I haven't seen anything from anywhere in the city council or from the mayor's office, and we got a few people that are here. When I was on the county board, I'm the one that found the money and put the money in the budget to do the study, not on the disparities, but to do the study on the high incarceration rates. I'm the one that worked to reduce the dollar amount for a phone call in the jail that affected a lot of us. What I want to do is create a faith-based partnership that's going to get deep down into the community, deep engagement. I'm talking about investing $1 million into our neighborhoods. And what we want to do is create economic development zones right in our neighborhoods, just like they do everywhere else. Why don't we put $5 million in our neighborhood? Why don't we put the money in the organizations where we can buy up the housing right across, for example, buy up the housing right across from Mount Zion, get people to work together, and we can, well, I got finished next time, but it's there. Read my blog, read my internet, go on the internet, I'm sorry. I got it right.
All power to the people.
All right. We're going to move on to Scott. There will be time for questions at the end. We're going to try to get through a lot of questions. So let's keep going. Thank you. Scott.
Thank you. You know, I would start in the 4 critical areas that I know that mean more to the community itself. It's focusing on education. It's focusing on employment. It's equitable housing. And it's community support. And that's where I would start. And in education, that we know the first 1,000 days of life are critical. We need to make sure that every single student that enters the Madison School District is on equal footing with each one of their peers. We know that every single person deserves a well-paying job in our city. If you're looking for work, you should be able to find work, and it's going to take support from the community. We need to have equitable housing. And this means if you work downtown, you should be able to afford to live downtown, but also in any neighborhood that you would like. And if you're one of those individuals that needs more support, it needs to be a community, the nonprofit, the for-profit, the faith-based community, that we can rise up as a community and support those who are in need.
Thank you. Bridget.
Great. This last year and a half, I've stepped away from the city council to get my master's degree and to travel because I'm from Madison, family's from here. Wanted to get out, wanted to see other places, really look at and test everything, question everything that I had seen in City Hall. One of the things that I think Madison does very poorly is working with public-private partnerships, especially in the dynamic ways that I've seen in other cities like Pittsburgh, working with the foundations. I was so excited to see Michael Johnson and the Boys and Girls Club with the Renabaum Foundation yesterday get 675 internships for our youth. I think when City Hall can partner, we can get amazing things to happen, but that isn't happening. The mayor got an award for getting 21 internships. So 675 versus 21. You know, I think it's important that we put what we need in perspective here in the community. I will counter a bit what Mayor Soglin was saying, especially since we went to bat over the Edgewater. Please do not say that $16 million for the Edgewater and TIF was in any way possible to go towards operating expenses for neighborhoods. That's not how TIF works. And the more that you tell the public that, the more angry they get when they think that that's a possibility. I think it's important to... Oh, thank you.
We'll keep going. We got lots of time. We got a lot of questions, so we'll keep going. We'll get... Christopher.
Yeah, so I'm glad Bridget brought that up because I made it out to the UW Center yesterday to see the Boys and Girls Club being presented the check for $300,000 to be put into their communities over the next 3 years. I think that's a wonderful model that we can copy. I think that it's not the mayor's role to set an idea and say this is what we're all doing. It's about a collaborative process. It's about inviting the input from the communities. It's about going into the communities and really talking with people who are on the ground and know the situation. So what I would do, and this is something that's actually kind of necessitated by my lack of pre-existing connections within the business community, within government. My candidacy represents an opportunity for Madison to come together. Like, the doors are open, there's seats at the table for everybody, and I need that input because I can't do it by myself. It's all of us doing it together.
Thank you. We will now take our next question from Pastor G.
Thank you. Much attention has been given to the struggling plight of African American males in Madison. So what I'd like to know is, as mayor, what will be your strategies for addressing these disparities and empowering African American males in this community?
All right, and we'll start with you this time. Richard, thank you.
Thank you. Well, first I want to say, you know, we got to quit accepting these crumbs. You know, there's a lot of money. $300,000 is crumbs, so I want to say that. If you can give $16 million to developers, which is okay at some time, but you can get $16 million to the neighborhood where they go. What I would do when you say about the kids, you know, I want to offer the employees at in the city 4 hours a month volunteer time. They get time off to volunteer. And what we're going to do is weigh these things. We're going to put some in the school. We're going to put some working with the boys. But I know about working with boys because I've just been coaching for 8 years. And you know what? It's running like this. People running, and me up here on this stage that's giving people hope. We got to give them hope. We can do this. And we got to give them hope, and they got to be able to look and say, I can be better. I can do this. And this is a campaign of hope. So right now, I'm helping the boys, right now.
All power to the people! All power to the people! All power to the people! All power to the people!
All right, we're going to move on to Scott. Thanks.
You know, we listen to the protests that are going on in this room right now. And this is the voice, this is the reason why we're up here. There's issues in this community. There are major issues, particularly when we look at the poverty, but the lack of hope. You know, what I look towards is when I saw the same exact issues, it's sitting down and talking to folks. When I sat down with, you know, Pastor G saying, what can I do? How can I help in this situation? What it was a soccer field to say, how do we make our community a welcoming, engaged place? When I look at when I had the same conversation with the Urban League to figure out how do we find more tech jobs? How do we expose students to 3D printers? How do we make sure that the jobs of the future are in the hands of our young men and women here in our community? That's what's going to create this, that's what's going to bridge the gap. It's going to be opportunities, and that's what I'm here to bring.
Thank you. Bridget.
Thanks. Erica, I really loved your report. And in that report, you quoted how 50% of African American residents live in 15 small residential blocks in the city, and you broke it out into 6 neighborhoods. And I think right now what's really facing our youth is it's a question of feeling respected. It's a question of feeling like they belong. We have to do so much. Part of it's on a geographic basis, and that's how the city and the 40-year legacy of how the city has been built, that we have sort of segregated young black men into specific neighborhoods. So we need to work on neighborhood solutions, and part of that's a physical thing with the bus system and access to services. But then it's also about continuing on with what the Boys and Girls Club is doing, trying to get people and build those relationships. I think the mayor's office could do so much more, partnering with groups like DMI and the Chamber of Commerce to give young black men, young black adults, the opportunities to see the world outside of these 6 neighborhoods.
Thank you.
So what are the issues facing young black men today? There is an incredible unemployment rate. These are problems of poverty, and beyond that, there are problems of incarceration. And the issue that we really need to start looking at is, like, why are people being discriminated against on Madison streets? How can we lift up the communities with, well, the TIF program is a great way to do it, and let's use it how it's intended to be used, not for subsidizing luxury development downtown, but for putting money into neighborhoods, into communities, so that people can get small businesses started and do something, maybe not as big of a return right away, but the return in the long run is absolutely worth it when we have a thriving and vibrant communities of color in Madison. As far as the arrest rates go, I would work with the police chief and tell him, look, you're not going to be making money off of people who cannot afford even the cost of one ticket. Like, that's done. No more.
All right, thank you. Paul.
Thank you. Well, there's a number of things that we've done just this past year or two that I think merit noting. First of all, we are acquiring the Griff's property on the southwest side to turn it into a job development and job training center. That's the kind of money that comes out of the capital budget that when you spend $17 million, as Alderman Resnick and Alderwoman Maniaci wanted to do, you don't have money left over for projects like this. We've joined in 3 major national efforts, including the President's Initiative, My Brother's Keeper, the Cities United Initiative, and a national network dealing with social injustice and inequity. I went to the private sector, and what did we get out of the private sector? We got a commitment that's now headed by United Way to put in $1 million to create 200 new jobs in the next 2 years. In addition to that, we won an award, Alderwoman Maniaci, not for 21 jobs, but for setting up a public-private partnership that created hundreds of jobs, which then led to the model for yesterday's efforts to create even more jobs. Thank you, private sector.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Nino Amato. Nino.
Thank you. And I want to thank WORT and ISMIS and Reverend G for providing this opportunity for all of us to participate in this discussion. Of all the forms of inequality and injustice in America today, the growing poverty, the inequities in the criminal justice system and education system, combined with the lack of health care and adequate comprehensive health care, are some of the most shocking and inhumane processes that have been put on Americans. Now, that's not my quote, that's Martin Luther King's quote from 47 years ago. Flash forward to today, it's very relevant. And when you look at the Race to Equity report, which came out 16 months ago, the central question was, how could a place as prosperous and resourceful and progressive as Madison-Dane County also be home to some of the most profound, pervasive, and persistent racial disparities in the country? In other words, Madison-Dane County is a health hazard zone for citizens of color, and a black male has a better chance going to jail than going to college at UW-Madison. So, as much as we've heard this, in the last year there's been a lot of flurries of good activity by the UW, county government, city government. What will you do as mayor to bring all the powers that be to the table and the people who are infected to come up with a comprehensive plan with measurements to begin to reverse things in a systematic way rather than a fragmented way?
All right, we'll start with Scott.
Is that not a phenomenal question? Thank you so much, Nino. I mean, what it comes down to is being able to work together. You know, we've set up a system, and whether it's structural or institutional, that's combative. We see the bickering between the city offices and the county offices. We see the bickering with the state. We see the bickering among private sector and nonprofit leaders, all with a different agenda. But what we need to do, and we all know really that end goal, it's about being that progressive liberal bastion where everybody's able to have success, everybody's able to find opportunities. But what we're going to have to do, and the only way we get there, is if we start working together. We need to we need to put aside any of our differences in the past. We need to come with it with an open heart. And we need to be looking for solutions for the betterment of the community, take the ego out of the equation, and think about the people that we're serving.
All right, thank you. Bridget.
Thank you. It was very interesting to represent a district that I had folks who had million-dollar lakefront mansions and have renters a few blocks away. You frequently then got that debate and that conflict, and lots of folks would come out to the meetings. What I have found time and again down at City Hall is that the folks who are able to participate when we have our meetings, those who have the time in their evenings to serve on committees, are not representative of the community at large. That's a huge problem. There's so much that the mayor can do to put people in positions of power. I think that really, we have to change the conversation. There's been 3 agency heads that have been hired. They've all been white men under Mayor Soglin this last administration. We need to work on diversity. I think it's really important that we bring people together, but we have to have real ideas. So one idea I have is to have a school liaison within the Department of Civil Rights. I think that time and again I come out to community meetings and I hear about what's going on in the schools. And at times we can feel very helpless at the city to break down those barriers, but we have to start somewhere, and my time is up.
Thanks. Christopher.
Thank you. So what I heard in that question was really how do we as a society arrive at this point? And for those of you who don't know or are unaware, the capitalist system depends on slavery to survive. It always has. And so it is up to us now, it is up to our generation to dismantle this system, which is based on genocide and the oppression of entire groups of people and the exploitation of workers and the exploitation of people of color. We have outsourced that exploitation to other countries now. There are people suffering in China in factories to make the shit that we buy that we don't need. And we in Madison, we have an opportunity we can direct funds to places where they are truly needed. We can direct them to the businesses that can set up in our communities. I think I'll pass off the rest of my time getting a bit hot under the collar.
Thanks. I'll just remind everyone here we are broadcasting on the radio, so let's keep it radio friendly.
Yep. Hello, everybody.
Move on to Paul.
How many people in the room recall Harambe? Harambe. There's about 15, 20 people. Harambe was a system, an organization of people that was set up mostly by folks who resided within about a mile of where we are now. They worked on health. They found that organizations like the city, the county, the university, the private sector were to serve them in terms of improving health care to the people of this community. And within 7 years of the establishment of Harambe, the black infant mortality rate declined to where it was lower than the white infant mortality rate in Madison and Dane County. Now, I'm not taking responsibility for its destruction, because after I left office, it was dismantled. But I'm telling you, if we did it once, with your help, we can do it again.
Thank you.
Feel the people, not the jail. Feel the people, not the jail. Feel the people, not the jail.
Okay, we're going to take our next question from Erica Nelson. Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I really want to answer this one too. Wow. There we go again. Disparities. And it's nothing new. You guys asked the question about the life I live. You just asked the question about the life I live. This is the life I live. You know what I mean? I mean, my mom, I'm the youngest of 8, okay? I'm the youngest of 8. My mom struggled washing dishes, carrying stuff up and down the steps where her feet hurt so bad. It hurt so bad that when she would come home, she would just sit down and soak her feet and back was hurting. And people felt sorry for her and they helped her. They helped her. And at 14, I got my job, my first job. And that's how we solve it. We employ our kids, we employ our people. It's about economic development. It's about economics. And you know, we gave away $1 million in studies. My Office of Performance Analysis would have probably cost about $400,000 to run, and we would have saved us $600,000 that could have went to disparities, nonetheless the thousands of hours that spent on the study of the Judge Doyle Square building.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go on to our next question. Bear with me, I'm trying to keep it even so everybody gets a different chance to go first. I'm trying to keep track of that in my head. We're going to go next to Erica Nelson.
So this is sort of building a little bit on Nino's last question and a little bit more specific. As mayor, what specifically would you do to strengthen city and county relations around this critical issue of racial equity, given what I believe everyone agrees that we need a high level of collaboration and collective action to address this problem?
All right, and this time we're starting with Bridget.
Great. I don't have time to scribble my ideas, so we'll just go for it here. I think an easy thing you could do is have joint meetings of the city council and the county board. I sat on the city-county liaison committee, and it was pulling teeth to get quorum, even of that body. The county executive and the mayor, along with the council president and the head of the county board, has to stand up and say, guys, we're all getting together, we're all meeting, we're all going to meet in the same room at the same time. That would save weeks and weeks and weeks of running around that I have seen directly on, you know, even issues about trying to get a picture frame to put in a painting on the wall and where it went outside the city council chamber. Like, this is what this committee has been talking about. It has not been talking about issues that are critical and important to our community. I think that also with city-county relationships, I think there was a report under Mayor Bauman about ways that the city and the county could collaborate. The Department of Public Health was about the only initiative out of that that actually came about to fruition. There's a whole report of other ideas out there to bring the city and the county together. And I'm up. Thanks.
Thanks. Christopher?
Thank you. So this is not my area of experience exactly, but I have a few ideas about how we might be able to work with the county, especially around the issue of incarceration. I think that in the past it's been proposed that the county seek funding from Huber in order to implement work sentencing programs which would substitute for jail time. And I know that the county board, there was a proposal made a few weeks ago, or maybe just 2 weeks ago, to propose that every employee of the city, union or not, right down to those who are currently working in the jails, would get paid for their work. And I think that this is something that we should do. We should be looking at alternatives to incarceration, which don't take people out of their communities, which don't separate them from the places that they can get employment, and which don't handicap them when they could be otherwise making money to support themselves. And so this is, I think, you can see that on my blog. I've written extensively about the subject. mayordaly.wordpress.com.
Thank you. Paul?
Thank you. A number of areas where we can do much more, and we're making progress. First, we got to finish the work on the disparity study, which is examining contracts that go to minority business enterprises, and do the work to get those contracts that are purchased with public money into the hands that are of companies that are owned by African Americans, Latinos, Asians, women-owned businesses. That's the first thing we can do. Second thing we can do is continue the collaboration regarding out-of-school time. Out-of-school time is those hours after school, on the weekends, and during the vacations, which are so critical to the development of a child. We've got most Madison out of school time for getting kids involved in constructive activities. Third, on the question of incarceration, we've done an examination of where are young African Americans arrested in our community. They are not arrested in their homes. They are arrested in the schools, they are arrested in the shopping centers, and they are arrested at the bus transfer points. My time is up, and I'll try to finish that with another question.
Feel the people, not the jail! Feel the people, not the jail!
All right, we're going to move on to Richard.
First, what I think we need to do is we need deep community engagement. And the way we get deep community engagement is through my faith-based partnership initiative. You see, that faith can bring us together so we can house the homeless, feed the hungry, and comfort the afflicted. You know, the community believe in them organizations, and I want to help them. And I think we can do that better. The other thing, we talk about collaboration. I'm the systems accountant for Dane County. I work for Joe. I can talk to him. I can go up there and talk to him. I'm cool with him. You know what I'm saying? And I work for Mr. Everts at the DPI, Department of Public Instructions. I work for him. And I work for the state, you know? And so we talk about collaboration. I can bring all this together. When I was on the county board, we had 37, the old vote. I brought the budget together. So I can bring people together.
All right, thank you. Scott?
I thank you for asking this question, which was how can the city and county collaborate together to make sure with our millions of dollars we are putting it towards a unified position. And it's about talking to the county executive, someone who I can call today. Our DA is right here in the room because he cares about these issues. Our county board members care, our city council members care, but it's only when you show each other respect. A number of the problems that we have is when we don't show each other respect and we don't listen to one another. I believe that if we start, right now the county is going to be engaging on one of the largest initiatives in the county's history to focus on racial disparities. My counterparts on the board are working on these proposals, and the city, instead of trying to set its own path, needs to say to ourselves, how do we work together for the greater good to make sure our money is well spent?
Listen to the people! Listen to the people! Listen to the people! Listen to the people!
We'd love to listen to the people. We'd love to get some questions from our panelists so we can get to the audience participation segment. So we're going to keep moving along, if that's all right with y'all, and keep getting more questions from our panelists here. Are we ready? All right. Pastor G.
Sure. When we talk about economic development in this community, particularly for African Americans, we think of just jobs. But for people who have jobs, they question where are the opportunities in Madison for being able to generate wealth and to be able to establish entrepreneurship. When I've interviewed African American business owners, and I've asked, what has been your strongest block in establishing your business? They've said dealing with city government. And so my question is, it appears that South Madison, a place where I've grown up and where I'm a property owner, is increasingly becoming gentrified. And so I want to know that as mayor, what will you do to ensure that vested individuals in this community, black individuals in this community, will have a voice and a piece of the economic development?
All right. We are at Christopher.
Yeah. So I have a book at home. It's called Women's Images of Men, and it's a feminist critique and art theory. And in that book, there is a picture of a number of old, fat, white men sleeping at a business conference while a presenter is presenting. And the caption reads, this begs the question, do women really want to enter the men's world of business? And I think that this can be applied to the question of race as well. Do we want to include people in a system which is already in place, or do we want to make a new system? And so we need to work together to make industries which are alternatives to the same old, same old. I mean, we know about the education disparities, so that means that for a number more years, like black children will maybe not have access to these tech jobs and these medical jobs until we can turn that around. And so we need to be talking about what we can do right now, and that is creating alternatives in the workforce. My personal idea, urban agriculture. Anybody can do it, and it's something that connects us back to the land, and it is control of land, which is really central to control of people.
Thank you. Thank you. Paul.
If you want to own a business as a plumbing company, an electrical contractor, or any of these skilled professions, it's necessary that you be a plumber, that you be an electrician, that you understand and have the skill to work in an HVAC company. The problem we've got in Madison is that you can't own a business like that if you haven't had the experience. And one of the things that we've got to do is open up the trades. There are programs going on now where we are working with labor unions and with contractors. We have got city funding for a number of activities in terms of cooperative ownership, and these are opportunities that are going to change the face of Madison business in coming years.
Thank you. Richard?
Thank you. Well, first thing we need to do is we need to hold the line on these taxes. And what I'm trying to say is that there's some financial things that I've seen that is just ridiculous. We don't have a good handle on our fiscal situation. And once we get a good handle on our fiscal situation, which is real soon, then we can take them savings and put them in the community. And it wouldn't be nobody would complain about that because it's not costing anything. And we can do these things. I found partnerships agreements. You know, I was on the Dane County Housing Authority, and you know, the CDA, Community Development Authority, and the Dane County Housing Authority can combine and save a whole lot of money and make things better. It'd be a one-stop shop. And then we take that money and take them savings and we put them directly into our community. And there's a lot of things like that. And I know I can identify at least $5 million that need to go into our communities for economic development and growth. You know, I ran an incubator, and the biggest thing is every business that was up there was undercapitalized. We need to put some money in our city, in our community.
That's true. Thank you. Scott?
There's a perception about South Madison that business leaders don't exist in South Madison. You end up finding the communities outside of South Madison try to create the jobs that are found here. It's people who are looking for an investment opportunity that will come in and try to sell a smooth line, instead of looking right here in this community. You know, I have found some of the best entrepreneurs that I know that are right here in these neighborhoods. I take a look at it and say, yes, it's about finding capital, it's about finding opportunities, but truly it's about exposing the great richness of the human capital that's sitting right here. Now, we brought a group of CEOs over to the Urban League. Out of the 12 that we brought to the tech companies, it was the first time that 11 of them had experienced South Madison. We need to change that perception. We need to show that there are great people in this community, that we can find capital for them to start businesses, and that there can be some great economic entrepreneurs inside this community.
Thank you. Bridget?
Yeah. When I came in on the city council, I had empty parking lots on East Washington Avenue and factories going out and things that had sat vacant for 20 years. And in 4 years on my time on the city council, ShopBop moved in, we got the ground broken on the Don Miller lot, and I look at Park Street and I see the same potential there. And, you know, I talk with family members who have lived here for many years, and they fall into those stereotypes. And I think it's time for that fresh set of eyes, fresh set of leadership to step up and say, we can do this. Park Street is uniquely positioned within the city. It's a huge opportunity. And the fact that more people don't see this is a real problem for me. And so we need to have economic development zones. The Thorstad's lot, Park Street is one of them. To the question, I think looking at the capital revolving fund for small business owners is key. Also, we do not have yet a one-stop shop for folks. And I've heard stories of small business owners trying to open up in Madison, and Madison giving them the runaround compared to Sun Prairie and other places. We need to have a team of, you could say, small business agents to help people facilitate that process interacting with City Hall.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to our next question from Nino Amato.
Sure. The very same government agencies, the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, the Public Service Commission of Wisconsin, who were created under the Follett years to protect our environment for our children and future generations, and to protect residential and small business ratepayers from price gouging from monopolies, have in essence been hijacked by the very same polluting industries. And if it wasn't for the City of Madison interjecting into that rate case, along with the NAACP, Repower Madison, a number of environmental groups, and the Coalition Wisconsin Aging Groups, they would have had a 600% increase in the base rate, even though they have the highest returns and highest stock ever. My question is, how will you hold MG&E accountable on the next rate case? And most importantly, how are you going to hold them accountable for the sustainable plan that Madison signed with MG&E to reduce their energy consumption by 50% by using energy efficiency and conservation, when in fact in the last rate case, they threw out people who had solar energy?
All right, we will start on the end this time with Paul.
Can anyone tell me when was the last time the City of Madison challenged MG&E in a rate case up until we did it this past year? How many of you recall when we took on MG&E in the 1970s and stopped the Lake Koshkonong nuclear power plant, for which MG&E shareholders are now thankful was never built? I'm going to be there with the city attorney, with the city council, enforcing every agreement we have with MG&E and pushing and arguing for public support for not just solar energy, but instead of paying a measly 6 or 7 cents per kilowatt for energy created by biodigesters, paying a fair market price of 12 and 15 cents per kilowatt when you're paying more than that.
Thank you. Richard.
Thank you. It's nothing more different than what happens to us every time they raise the parking fee, or they raise your garbage fee, or they raise any other fee. It's regressive. And we pay a bigger percentage of our income because we're poor. So you pay a bigger percentage of your income. And that's the game. See, what we have to do, and not just MG&E, and you know I'll hold MG&E to it anyway. We'll hold all these companies, and I'll work hard because it affects us more than anybody else, the poor. You know, it affects us. So that question is an easy answer for me. But what we need to do is hold our city council and the city office to not raising all these fees and different fees. It's another tax. It's the worst tax that we get, and that's what they do. You know what I'm saying? So I'll fight.
Thank you. Scott?
Yeah. The mayor and I agree. We made sure that the city council, the mayor's office, and we were all on a unified front to fight the ratepayer case. If I remember correctly, it was unanimous. No one disagreed on this issue. Now, what it does come back to is how are we going to be accountable for ourselves? And just like Richard said, it comes back to all of the fees that we put on our constituents. It also ensures that we're living up to our own sustainable nature. It's not just talking to MG&E to say why should they be sustainable. What can we do as a city to make our buildings more energy efficient? To make sure that when we put money into sustainability, that it's not gutted later for other priorities. And it's to make sure that we have a fuel-efficient economy that represents the 21st century. Because in the end, that investment today is going to be a cost savings tomorrow that we're all going to be able to benefit from.
Thank you. Bridget?
Yeah. I think it's incredibly important to stand up and fight. I think it's very much important that when you do that, you fight to get results. So part of this is it's a rugby pile, and you push the ball as far down the field with as many people as possible, right? But then it's also you have to be smart and savvy and take it to the shareholders. You have to look at other towns and municipalities, and you have to put a lot of pressure on MG&E. I was pretty amazed at how they completely blew decades of good public will over this. One of the frustrating things of the reality of governing is that there are things happening in our state right now that make us feel very small and make me white hot angry. And you look at what's going on in the State House today and taking out the Wisconsin idea. We have to help those who the market leaves behind. And whether this is Lyft and Uber, or whether it's MG&E, or whether it's the Republicans, Madison has to stand up for its citizens. So if that means that we have to prioritize those in our funding decisions, if we have to look at helping those with their utilities, we should do that, and we should look to fund incentivizing renewables.
Thank you. Christopher?
Thank you, Nina, for the question. I personally have been out with MG&E on the pavement in front of their, or Repower Madison. I'm sorry, I'm not with MG&E. But yeah, I've been out with Repower Madison protesting this rate case and trying everything we can to get things changed. It was an absurd proposal, and we found out, that the proposal was invented by some think tank in Texas and sent here, and they cold called people throughout Wisconsin in order to get this done, and then they tricked them into thinking, oh yeah, I'll sign this paper that says, yes, I would like my rates raised, please. And when we found these people, that was not the case. So I mean, yeah, I will go toe to toe with MG&E. I am fully prepared to do that, and I think that we should be moving towards municipalization by any means possible. It may take a few years, but I do have a plan to do it, and more on that later.
Thank you. Our next question from Erica.
Yes, so this is a final question.
Yes.
And so the three of us have agreed on this question, so it's being asked on behalf of all of us. So while Madison has been known for promoting community policing and diversifying our police force ranks, nonetheless, the statistics on our arrest, detention, conviction, and incarceration rates reveal that extreme racial disparities persist in our law enforcement justice systems, both for juveniles and adults. What new policies or approaches would you pursue to reduce these disparities and increase community trust in our police and courts?
All right, we'll start with you, Richard.
Wow, I get the big question. Okay. All right, well, I think what we need to do is we need actually more training and implicit bias training. So, we need to know that, we just need more training. I wouldn't go with the body cameras or anything. I would take more money. I would put that money into training. And what I would do is I would get more, who's the police that investigate the police internal affairs? I think we want to put more money in investigating other bad cops. And if we can investigate them, and then once we find them guilty, and of course we want an outside investigation too. We deal with them swiftly and severely. And we got to do it real hard. And we got to just make a point. Well, I believe that we can do better. We can do a lot better. And I think this movement that we got is opening up a lot of eyes. This young movement that's moving is opening up a lot of eyes. And in time, when they get their stuff together and they move in the right direction and they focus, they're going to be very, very powerful and a very powerful group. I say we support them.
No justice,
thank you.
No peace. No justice. No peace. No justice. No peace.
We'll move on to Scott.
The statistics are embarrassing. They're embarrassing as a Madison resident. They're embarrassing for any of our tourists who read the statistics. And when nationwide, when we look at that, we should all be ashamed. When we look at what we can do here in our city, You know, we have a police chief who we need to be able to talk to. We have a community here who's protesting in the streets because they are sick of what's going on and the way that they've grown up in this community, and here are the outcomes. It's going to start taking conversations, but we're going to need to be starting to talk about action to show that we have hope. And for those individuals who are incarcerated, to make sure when they get out, there is a community that can support them, to make sure that they have housing, to make sure that they can find work, and to ensure that they don't go back into the penal system, because that's how we're going to break the cycle.
Thank you.
Build the people, not the jail. Build the people, not the jail.
Bridget?
Yeah, I have to follow up. I agree with Richard, especially around police training and sensitivity, but also having represented some pretty high-strung constituents, I think that at times there's also a community engagement component to that training that really needs to happen about why are people calling the cops, what's happening. There's a community conversation that I think very much needs to happen, because I think that folks who are young and black get the police called on them more than their peers who are white. I think we have to have a very real conversation about that. I'm also very interested in what City Hall can do for the pipeline and looking at education and how that fits in. There's very good research coming out of Johns Hopkins looking at 7th graders and directly the correlation between folks dropping out of school and ending up in jail about things that they're seeing early in middle school. So I think the City Hall side is one part, but there's very much a bully pulpit that the mayor's office has that we need to have a very real conversation on. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Christopher?
Yeah, so I attended the die-in at the Westtown Mall before the holiday, and I was proud to do it. Now, Richard, what you said about body cams, it was absolutely right on the mark. When they can be turned off, even when we have videos of black people being shot and killed, and grand juries refuse to indict, we see that this problem is not going to be solved with technology, and it would be a waste of money to try to do so. And so what we need to do is put the pressure on at the level of the judicial area. I mean, we need to have elected citizen review boards for any police officers in any excessive use of force incidents. And that is elected review boards. I will repeat that for those listening on the radio. And we need to have public hearings. We can't have this done behind closed doors. There has to be accountability for police officers just like there are for elected officials. And like that's where the key is. I mean, that's how they know that they're going to get they're not going to get away with it if it happens.
Thanks. Paul?
The problem is far deeper than a police department. It has to do with equity. It has to do with economic and social justice. When we talk about the young people in our community, and they're predominantly being arrested in places where young people are, schools, shopping malls, bus transfer places, we've got to look at what is going on in those places and why kids are going from those places into the criminal justice system. Now, we've made 2 changes in the city in regards to disposition of these cases on an experimental basis. First, this coming year, there's going to be a peer review here in the South Side at the South Police District. Secondly, we're making changes in the disposition of cases in the city municipal court. I guess my time's up. I'll try to get to the end.
All right. Thank you. So now we are going to move on to the audience question portion of the evening. And I know we have some folks here from Simpson Street Free Press that I want to acknowledge. Well, we're moving the mics. Yeah. So we'll take questions online from those of you here. I know we have managing editor Deirdre Green here with us. Thank you, Deirdre. And feel free to, we've got another mic over here, so feel free to step up and ask your questions. Thank you. Hi.
So my question relates to the issues of academic achievement and racial disparities. As you know, these topics are important for all voters in Madison, but particularly to young people and families of color. My organization believes that this community's glaring achievement gaps are not just a school issue. Rather, these achievement gaps, they have to be seen as a community issue. Achievement gaps this bad are definitely something that's really important to everybody who's here. And one example is the out-of-school time. And we think that it's something that everybody in our city should have or play a role in particular, the city government. So I'm particularly concerned about how the downtown leaders view after-school academics and the principle of college readiness. For instance, we know that you, Mayor Soglin, have voiced your commitment to neighborhoods, and we appreciate that. But as my organization has participated in the MOST initiative, the Madison Out of School Time, we see repeatedly that your representatives insist over and over again on taking out the term college readiness and replacing it with the more vague term community ready. And that makes us very apprehensive. Perhaps the downtown community does not fully understand the gravity of what we're dealing with in our home neighborhoods. And this question is open to everybody. Another example I'll reference really quick is from Alder Resnick's website, which proposes a new soccer and basketball complex on Badger Road. Again, I know that you are also very committed to our city's future. But as a longtime resident on Badger Road, we already have stuff like that. And I think that this proposal makes me anxious as well. So I feel like basketball does not bridge achievement gaps, and that these kinds of examples make me wonder about the city's urgency index. If you are elected mayor, and this is to anybody, with what sense of urgency will you address issues of academic achievement? And what solutions do you see that will move the needle on the crucial racial disparities issues our city has so far been unable to address?
Thank you. Good question. Who do we start with?
Oh, no, Scott.
Scott, yep. All right, and we'll go and everybody will answer. Thanks.
So that was some question. I think that question would be longer than any one of the responses that we're able to give, but it was a phenomenal question. So what I look at is the standards, what it is to get any student into University of Wisconsin. And I look at that as the gold standard. And regardless of what Scott Walker wants to say today or tomorrow, I think that's where we should all be striving to. And as a downtown alder, what I've asked each student is, when did you have internet access? And what you'll find is almost every single student now will say middle school. They had computer access in their home and computer literacy from a very early age. What I'm dedicated to bring forward is a proposal within the first 2 years, and we're going to start well before I'm off city council, if I can help it, to make sure that we have internet in any school, in any home that's on free and reduced lunch, to start off pilot projects within the 7 sites, hopefully by the end of the year, in the fall, and be able to bring that to the entire city. Now, the internet, it doesn't solve all the options and all the problems, but it's one tool that bridges that gap.
Thank you. Bridget?
Well, I guess I'll go a little analog, even though I just got my master's from Carnegie Mellon, and I see very real how technology, they had gotten rid of the computer lab. We all had to have laptops, right? But here's the deal. So my mom's sitting in the audience here, and Mom was a librarian in Madison Public Schools. And I look at our library system here, especially looking at what the Carnegie Library System in Pittsburgh does, you know, Andrew Carnegie, the Carnegie Library System, and you look at what they're able to do with their youth services. We're nowhere close anything what we should be doing. It's about homework clubs, it's about tutors. You look at all the young professionals coming to the city, right? Folks my age, I'm 31. Nobody's asking me to come out and volunteer, to come help tutor, to say, hey, do you have like a Thursday night you can come come out to the library. So I think those are those types of things that don't cost a lot of money, and the technology is important, but it comes with a lot of cost. These are things that we can reach out to, again, with that bully pulpit of the mayor's office and get people here. Because what's happening right now is everybody stays very segregated in their neighborhood or in their social circle or on Facebook, and they're not engaging. Thanks.
So my answer would be yes, we need better internet access. Yes, we need better nutritional options for kids, and the thank you, but one thing that we really need is more black teachers. We need black teachers in the classroom, and I think that we should be recruiting for this. I think that Madison has an opportunity. We can work with the university. We can work with other accredited universities around the country to do this, but at the same time, let's say, is the end goal to get them into the university, or is it to get people truly educated? Because a university education is great, but if you choose a track that's not a really hot career type right now at the moment, then you are going to be saddled with crippling debt. Me too, right? And right now, and like there's a huge debt crisis looming in our generation today, and so we need to start thinking about what is the end goal? Is that all that we're driving at, or are we trying to do more?
Thank you, Paul.
There's nothing a mayor can do that's important to the city as supporting the educational environment of our public schools. That's number one. And one of the reasons that the quality of education deteriorates is because of the deterioration of neighborhoods. That's why we put the focus on stronger neighborhood centers, on supporting faith-based organizations that are doing work in the neighborhoods, building libraries. Look what we did in Meadowwood with the Meadow Ridge Library expansion. I was in there a couple of nights ago. The computers are all being used. Now, what's critical here in answering your question has to do with, are we preparing people for college or for community? And we have a disagreement then, because I think we have to prepare people for life. Not everyone is going to college. And the most important thing is this: the purpose of education is not just economics. The governor doesn't understand that. The Republicans in the legislature don't understand it. The purpose is to learn, to think, to have opportunity. That's what education's about.
Thank you. Richard?
Well, I talked about the volunteerism that I want to offer our city employees. You figure if half of them took advantage of it, we might have like 4,000 hours of volunteerism in our schools. But we got to equate that and put it together and create a system that get somebody smart like Scott to create an app that you can connect the schools and people can see whether their kids is absent or whether they're in school. We gotta do some really heavy work on truancy. And it's a tough thing, but we gotta keep the kids in school. And if we keep our kids in school, it's gonna help the whole community. So I believe I can get the private sector to partnership on this, because if we keep them in school, you take away a lot of the juvenile crime in the daytime. That'll work for the disparities. At least they won't be able to be profiled because they'll be in school. They might get profiled in school, but at least not on the street. And so what that'll do is, I think that we can do things like that through, and we gotta do a big campaign on truancy. And then we gotta have some sanctions, but we gotta have some diversions too. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Deirdre. We got a lot of people asking questions. That's awesome. I want to ask you if you will direct your question. If you have a particular candidate in mind, then we can go through and get as many questions as possible. Thanks, Brandy.
All power to the people. 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 Thank you for having us and open up this opportunity. I just want to first say that I think a lot of you guys, when you answered the lady's last question, that you missed the question. And I think a lot of it is because there's some disconnect between what you believe to be the issues to what the issues are. And when I say that, I mean that what we're talking about and what you guys have addressed are symptoms of a bigger issue. Symptoms and just manifestations of something deeper and that we keep avoiding, and that is institutionalized racism That is white supremacy. Our systems are not broken, they are fixed. So my question to you, our current mayor, and I also want to address this to, all you guys, so I hope they let you answer it. But I am a co-founder of the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition, and we have been working diligently to have our voices heard and to have the voiceless heard. And what we've been receiving in return is a lot of emotions and a lot of ego, a lot of responses based on making this personal. So my question to you is, what are you going to do as the current mayor or the future mayor of the city of Madison, Wisconsin, to address our demands? And let me remind you of our demands. That is to release 350 black people from Dane County Jail who are currently incarcerated due to crimes of poverty. Our second demand is to end solitary confinement because it is inhumane and it is torture. Our third demand is for you to invest money and directly into programs and initiatives led by the black community, for the black community. And that doesn't, I love Urban League, I respect all these big other organizations that do programming, but programming has to come from the people, by the people. The people are most affected, and that's why your answers were off, because you're not listening to the people. And another thing in our demand is, what are you going to do to address the 8 million that's sitting currently in the PBJ? And we keep saying, well, that's a city thing, that's a county thing. What are you going to do to reinvest that money? What are you going to do to deal with the issues proactively and actively in an urgent sense? Because our kids can't wait 10 or 15 years for these so-called committees and programs to work. We need action now. People need food now. People need opportunity now, and people need resources now. So what are you going to do?
All right, let's get some answers. All right. All right, let's start with Bridget.
I'll start here. All right. Step one is don't piss people off if we want to get things moving here. So we have to have good conversations. What's really important in getting thrown in, hold on. We have to have good conversations and good lines of communication. There's very real realities, and I understand. I'm not going to give you an answer that you like sitting up here when I say 1, 2, and 4 that you mentioned are completely outside of the ability of the city to touch. That doesn't mean that I don't want to help you. So I think, and we've had these conversations offline to try to. I've reached out to try to get you in touch with folks that can help have these conversations. I have a friend who is on the. She's a state senator from Ferguson. Reaching out to her to see how are they having those conversations. How can you get these different lines moving together? It is a local issue, and what's really frustrating for me at times, especially dealing with homelessness issues that I had, it is, and it's so frustrating for me to sit up here and not be able to have a better answer for you, and that's heartbreaking.
We have the answers.
All right, let's get another answer from another one of our candidates running for mayor.
So,
we're going to go in order. We're going to go to Chris, and then we'll go to Paul.
This is the People's Radio broadcasting live from Fountain of Life Church on West Badger Road. So as far as the demands made by the Young, Gifted, and Black Coalition go, I would seek, as I've said earlier, the work sentencing option to get people out of the jail. I would seek the use of that money, the $8 million that they have to put into brick and mortar somewhere. Let's build mental health facilities. I say close the solitary confinement. It is inhumane. I say that because if we take the people out, they won't need to renovate their facilities. They won't need the extra room. They'll have the room, and we want them to have a deficit of beds filled. That's what I want. And so we need jobs training. We need. All right, I'll pass off the rest of my time because I'd want to hear from Paul too.
Paul.
When I wanted to come back into office in 2011, the critics said that I didn't know what I was talking about. They were saying there are no troubled neighborhoods in Madison. I said the issue was economics, it was the city budget, and it was poverty and injustice. And it's been 3.5 difficult years trying to get alignment, trying to get a city council to go with me. When I said we didn't have enough money for all those commitments to Overture because of Act 10, I had some real battles with the city council that were not enjoyable. But I'm not going to back off on those principles. I'm not going to back off on the notion of building neighborhood resource teams. And the key there is the word resource. City staff doesn't run things. They are a resource to serve the people. That's what it's about. And so when the time came for teenagers at Owl Creek to come forward with $300,000 proposal to finally get bus service, because some city council and some other administration allowed that development to be built with no transportation, total isolation for those families. We knew something was wrong, and that's how you change the system.
Thank you.
Let me
Let's
ask you
hear
a
from
question.
Richard.
I'm going to ask you a question. Demand 1, 350 release? No. Demand 2, what was it? The other crazy one? What was it? Yes, what was it? I'm going to be honest. In solitary confinement, that might be okay, but when you talk about, I worked in the federal prison for 5 years, okay, in the system. And you know what? I was the only African American that worked in Oxford, Wisconsin, okay? And you know what? Thank God they have an Oxford, Wisconsin. I'm just gonna be honest. But 350, let's be realistic, but what I will do, I'm willing to sit down and talk to you and tell you how you can really make real progress in reducing these disparities.
But it's not our job to reduce it. It's y'all's job to reduce it.
And I'm willing to work with you. But what I'm telling you is you have to bring solid issues. And I won't dance around it like everybody else. I will lead.
All right. Have we heard from Scott? Yes. Okay. All right. We're going to keep going.
So earlier today, I was on a conversation with a journalist who said the movement that's in front of us right now is the most powerful that she's seen in 20 years. It's nearly brought her to tears. We had a serious conversation of where our community is going and what kind of direction. For the mayor to go out and say that the city council doesn't care, that we're heartless, to paint us in that light, to say that the only issue is the overture budget. We have so many bigger issues in this community. Now, the reality is we're going to be talking about a jail, and it's going to take conversations between the city and the county. And the people. The people need to have a voice at the table. Their voice needs to be heard. We are listening, and what it's going to be time, what it's time for is action. It's time to actually sit down, start talking, and making sure that you feel like you have a spot in this community, that you feel like you belong. And I know if you were thought that everything was right in the world, you wouldn't be having these conversations right. We wouldn't be having these conversations right now.
All right, we're going to keep going and take questions. We are going to wrap the live broadcast radio segment at 8. That was our agreement, but we will take as many questions as we can, and if we're willing, we're going to alternate, and then we'll go here and then there.
Thank you. Quick question. As mayor, without any more excuses or blame game, how long is it going to take this community to get a shelter for the homeless, the true homeless, and when are we going to address the infiltration of the criminal takeover of our community and really do something about it? Thank you.
All right, do you have anyone in particular in mind? All right.
Okay. Well, I don't see a criminal takeover of our communities going on, particularly, but the homeless shelter I would love to address. That is one of my absolute top priorities. This is the reason that I have gotten into this race. I would propose that we close the downtown TIF district, that we open up $7.5 million for the school district, let them have it, they collected the money, it's theirs, and that will help them deal with their $10 million deficit. Madison School District is currently projecting a $10 million deficit. And so this goes back to the earlier questions about how we're going to improve the opportunities for our students as well. And so with the remaining $5 million that the city will get, I say that we should build the shelter. I say that, and that should be a very comprehensive shelter, that it should include a wet shelter, day shelter, night shelter, and service center. And if we have to use all $5 million to do it, I'm going to do it.
Does anyone else want to jump in on that question? Bridget.
Yeah, go on my website on the issues page, and I have an idea for the Salvation Army lot that was in my district. I've been talking with their board members. You want a realistic timeline, Maria? I mean, I think we could get a new shelter and day shelter, because I don't know if you're talking overnight shelter or day shelter. Realistically, we should have had some space downtown this year. That's not hard to get. I've gone through it twice with the day shelter and getting that commercial space flipped. The Salvation Army site, I think if you look at the other stuff on East Wash, you're looking at probably about a 2.5-year build out. I've been talking with their board members, especially in light of YWCA, doing a $10 capital campaign for their site, and talking with Salvation Army about what their priorities are. I very much like the idea of a centrally located day shelter, especially because Salvation Army, it's women and children, and I had a lot of families on the curb on Mifflin Street with the men not allowed in the shelter. So I think having something that partners very closely geographically and in tandem with our existing services is the right way. I think you start it now, it's a 6-month process, and then there's the construction window.
All right, I think Paul wanted to answer.
A couple of things to keep in mind. First of all, shelters are not the solution. The solution is permanent housing. Housing first, no questions asked. Provide the housing, and then we move on to deal with the other issues, whether there's substance abuse, whether it's job training, education, mental illness. But the solution is permanent housing. Now, there's an average of over $4 million projected in this year's budget and all the subsequent budgets towards that end to build 1,000 units over the next 5 years. Where are we going to get some of that money? We're going to go where the city failed for many years, which is to use WIDA-eligible tax credits, and you don't close out a TIF district. What you do is you extend the life 1 year, because there's a state law that we will use that now allows us to take the money of that TIF district, not spend it just within the district, but wherever we want for affordable housing, housing for the homeless, housing for working families. The answer on the shelter is unfortunately with the county, and they screwed it up. We had a site in the city, we were agreeable to it, and they blew it. I'm sorry.
That's what I meant
to
say.
Thank you. All right, let's take one more question.
Okay, I'll be real quick. This is a 2-part question for Richard and Scott, and it's just a yes or no question for Scott. Do you have any African Americans working for your company?
Yes.
Okay. Richard, I only heard you say faith-based initiative. After I heard you say it, then all of a sudden it became a catchword for all the other candidates. Could you explain and expound upon your initiative for faith-based action? Thank you.
Yeah, I guess there's a couple of components, but one of it is that, one, we could have, we talk about shelters, we could have a revolving shelter. So if we get deep into the community and we partnership with these faith-based organizations, which I got a meeting coming up, I think it was supposed to be on the 10th, so we're working on it. I don't know if it's going to happen, with a bunch of faith-based organizations, and we're going to talk about things that happen. But one thing, for example, if we have a place like, let's say, for example, we look at Mount Zion Church, and we look at a church like that across the street they have housing, city housing that's in bad shape. Why not just sell the housing to that organization? They create a nonprofit, just like all other nonprofits, and they create a program where they can work, they can tear it down, they can rebuild it, you can train employees to be the plumbers, the electricians, and everything you have to do. And at the end of 2 years, you got economic development, you got a zone, you got everything, and now you're building up the community. So, you know, just little things like that, and we can do that all over the city, in all these little places. So it's a big economic thing, and it hits a lot of the disparities.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are at the end of the radio portion of tonight, our broadcast. I want to thank everyone, all of our candidates that were here tonight. I want to thank all of our panelists. I want to thank the excellent staff here at Fountain of Life who helped put this together, who worked so hard to make this happen. I want to thank all of our co-sponsors and all of our staff here at WORT. We had more than a dozen people working at the station to bring this together, including all of our fabulous tech and sound and camera and web and everything that it took to bring this to you. So thank you very much for joining us. And please remember to vote. If you need more information, the League of Women Voters are out in the lobby and can connect you. I'm Molly Stentz with WORT, and if folks want to stay, we can continue this informally, but we're signing off from Radioland. Thanks.
So can we still ask questions? Are we gonna ask questions?
Yeah, if
I'm here to stay.
Yeah. Okay.
The candidates are...
So often at the national, local, and the county level and state level, we see so many incumbents that run for election and go unopposed. And I must say that there's no apathy here, and there is much appreciation that for all 5 of you, Paul for running again, for the 4 other people running, I appreciate that. Secondly, at least for the panel of candidates concerned, I appreciate the civility among all the discussion, the inner banner, and the commentary you provided to all of us to help educate who best should move on to the general election and become subsequently our successor in the next election for mayor. My question is this: while we just don't always like to have one issue voters, there are many in this city who are concerned, though, about one particular issue that seems to be often ignored and forgotten, and that is regarding to our landmarks situation with our commission. Whether you want to say it's for a few wealthy developers or well-connected ones who want to try to change the laws and the rules and ordinances with our landmarks per se, there is a concern about that. My question to you is this: what verbal and nonverbal cues can all of us voters take from all 4 of you and the mayor the 5th? In terms of nonverbal, which is actions, things you do, things you're going to sign, things you're going to lobby for, and also for verbally, your promises, your rhetoric during the campaign and when you do get in office. And the second part of the question is, once you do get in office, who are you going to really appoint to get on this 6-member, particularly the Landmarks Commission, that you're looking for? Qualities, experiences, traits, resume credentials, things like that you're looking for to get on that commission, which is very important.
All right, let's hear some answers. We've got a lot of people here, so let's keep moving. I saw Bridget jump in on that one.
I'll go. Well, I think perhaps Stu might want to keep his seat. I sat on the Landmarks Commission for 2 years, so I'm familiar with it. I think it's important to have a good balance of folks. We have some specific seats that, for instance, Stu here is the historian designation on the committee. We have architects. I think you want to have somebody who looks at the balance of the situation at hand. I was always the type that I was very much about the specific property and the individual property, weighing that on the merits of what the individual proposal at hand was. There were others on the committee at the time when I served that were very big on this idea of the district as a whole. My personal philosophy is I think you should let historic districts breathe and see new development and growth while preserving the quintessential beautiful things that are historic to our city and need to be saved. And it's a balancing act. And so that's how I would approach appointments on that committee. I don't believe all 6 are up in April. There are some that will continue.
All right. Does anyone else want to jump in on that question? Otherwise, we can keep moving. Christopher?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. So I think that right now our city's kind of in the middle of a development boom, and we know that development booms, or all kinds of booms, in fact, will eventually go bust. And so we need to start thinking about how we're going to preserve the character of our city while also fostering the kind of developments which will sustain us in the future. I think that we should be a self-sustaining city, and I think that we should be favoring the kind which create tangible products, encouraging people who are local artists and craftsmen, and we should be providing job training for them. That's kind of getting away from the question. I would accept all applications for the Landmarks Commission. I'm sure that the city has a lot of people who are very, like Stu, who have been here a long time, who know a lot about it, and not a lot more than me. And so I would seek out those people, I suppose.
All right, Paul?
I would hope that there'd be 2 challenges that we'll address. The first challenge is distinguishing in the dilemma that we have between landmark buildings and those which are supporting. We've got sharp disagreements among staff on that. We have sharp disagreements on the council. We have sharp disagreements on the part of the public, and I'm simply not sure exactly what is the solution. But we need someone to serve on the Landmarks Commission who can figure out that balance. The second thing I think we need to address is that we have to consider whether or not we want to take State Street and make it a historic district. I think that's something that's got to be on the agenda right now. I didn't get an opportunity to respond to the question on faith-based issues, but people should understand it's been 30, 40 years since the city had its first faith-based partnership with the Quaker-built housing off of Park Street. And there's ongoing relationships been going on for decades with Lutheran Social Services, with other faith-based organizations in terms of providing services.
All right. Anyone else want to take that question, or we want to take another couple questions?
Let me say something real quick.
Okay.
Stu, that's your name, Stu? I don't know a lot about the landmark thing, and it's something I really got to get up to speed with. And, you know, I think that's something that's really, really unique, because everybody's bringing in all their baggage on what they do. And I think having a fresh eye and maybe using the intellectual capital of our city to bring information in, sometimes we know too much for our own good. So I'm open to hear, and I would like to sit down and hear a lot more about it.
I would say there's a time and place to start talking about what the landmark status is in our city. And right now we're having a conversation about poverty, about the opportunity gap, and with the economic issues that are happening in South Madison. So while the Landmarks Commission and the landmark status, and as a member of the Plan Commission, I could talk all night, let's right now talk about the real issues right now that face South Madison.
All right. Let's take one more question from each line, and then we can gather and
all right, so,
wrap this.
You want to talk about a real issue? Let's talk about food, man. There are people who live in our poorest neighborhoods, Allied, Darbo, etc., where if they don't own a car and they want to get food, their options are McDonald's, the gas station, or taking an hour-and-a-half bus ride, or taking a really expensive cab ride. What will you all do to address the food deserts in Madison?
I love that question. So my very first
Chris.
blog post on my blog, yes.
Yep, you want to jump in? All right.
My very first blog post on my blog, I wrote it last August, was to deal with the issues of food access in Madison. Like, I feel really strongly about this. I've done way too much research about pesticides, herbicides, and genetically modified food, and their effects on human health. And I think that we need to be growing our food locally. I think that the greater distance that it travels, the worse it is. And I think that we can be working to set up aquaponic greenhouses within the city. That was my other idea for what we could do with some of this money that we might have access to. And I think that that's something that will create a lot of economic opportunity for people as well. Not only that, but if we want to go the route of Huber, then we can have people learning to grow food, like reforging that connection with the land that has been lost to us over the course of the last 2 generations. I mean, really, when you see all this preservative-laden food and everything, it's a Cold War era. It's very anyway.
Food deserts. Anyone else? Paul, and then Bridget.
4 years ago, there was no food policy council in Madison. Now there is. Here's what we've accomplished to date. First of all, it's small. Go to Brittingham Park. There was some opposition from the neighborhood. There is a beautiful, thriving community garden in Brittingham Park, which was principally designed to meet the needs of the Hmong elders in the neighborhood.
We did people. That was by the people. Free to me.
Thank you.
All right,
does that count towards my time?
Go for it.
Secondly, we were anticipating problems at Allied Drive. The neighborhood resource teams teamed up with the folks at Allied. Last night, we brought in and got approved the resolution for $15,000 for transportation as an interim solution. But now we've got a proposal for $300,000 to invest in a community-based market at Allied Drive. We're hoping that we can acquire the Salvation Army property at Darbo, turn it into a community facility, and do something we've never done before, which is to incorporate a food center with a neighborhood center. That's just the beginning. And if you give me another hour, I'll tell you about the rest of the agenda.
All right, Bridget.
Great. There's been some very good ideas touched upon here. I think one thing we really need to look at is the zoning code that is not allowing for businesses to set up. We need to look, and this is part of the work that's being done, looking at where those food deserts are, having the city step up, having the city invest to ensure, because it's not just about community gardens, and especially in weather like this, right? And it's about having access to good, smart grocery consumer decisions. One of the things, Jeff Maurer with Fresh Madison Market, he tried with the cart and that didn't go very well. So we need to keep going back to the drawing board. We have to provide transportation. We're starting to put those things in place. I think what Growing Power is doing, and I was a summer associate over at Center for Resilient Cities and Badger Rock Middle School, is a really great idea of a hybrid of how you can take a community where there isn't existing commercial space and create food options there. So I think there's more that we can do. It's across like 4 or 5 different areas. It's not just one idea.
All right. Either of you? All right. We'll take one last question, and then we'll. I think we did one, and I think we're at this line now, since we just.
Everyone is still sitting down here, and the people are here to ask their questions and be heard.
Please don't cut us off. This is what happens to us all the time.
All right.
Finish this.
That's up to the candidates and all of our facility and all of us here and our respecting everyone's time. So, all right.
I'm from the community. My question go back to the homeless and the poverty downtown. You can watch how the city overlooked the issue of many homeless people sleeping on the streets. I have watched over the years so many concerts and events. The city didn't raise so much money. So many musicians, artists, comedians, rock bands that came through, got money and left. And the big issue, what I'm saying is, it's a lot of homeless here. What are you going to do if you're elected to help that issue? But the issue is, you can give a homeless person shelter. That is not that's not the solution. A lot of people got mental health. I heard Paul kind of touched on some of that. Mental health, substance abuse issues, alcoholism, dealing with depression. What are we going to do to use our resources in our community to help the homeless get the proper help so they can have a mental state to even if you did give them housing, to even maintain it?
All right. Bridget?
Yeah. What's most frustrating was seeing this on a daily basis, working on the Capitol Square, and understanding how completely broken the social net is to have the resources for the needs that we need to have in this community. This also gets a little bit to Maria's question that I think she was getting at about the top of State Street. I mean, the other thing is I hate this idea of how we should just shuffle people along, right? We have to give people good options of where to go and how to spend their days. Housing's a major component. There are housing properties downtown that are underutilized or empty that I think could very well be target properties for the city to look at. Housing first is great if you have housing. We do not have housing. And like you also said, the folks who are homeless, it's not just about being homeless. I had a gentleman at the previous debate come, and it's about access to services and having folks know that those services are there, and there's so much more. Go to the website. I got some ideas on there.
All right, there are 5 critical services that every one of us needs throughout our lives. It is transportation, it is quality health care, it is quality child care, it is housing, and it's education and job training. I want to go back to the health for a moment, because health care includes nutrition, it includes food, it includes mental health, it includes substance abuse. Housing first is the beginning. You have to have housing. If you try and deal with the others without permanent housing, they don't work. That's been proven time and time again. We've got a commitment over the next 5 years to build 1,000 units. With that, we are working to get supportive services in those other 4 areas. That is a solution. We have got to get away from the idea that transitional housing or shelters is the solution. That's what took us off track for over a decade, and that's why we don't have solutions today. We also have to add to everyone's housing stock. Madison 4 years ago had the lowest vacancy rate in the United States. That hurt everyone regardless of income. We've added 4,000 units. They're not affordable for everyone, but many of these new...
time is up. All right.
Pardon?
She's been...
Yeah, I know. You know what, Bridget, though? Every one of you's gone over. I've been the one who's constantly stopped. So this one instance on this really critical issue of housing, I've decided to do what the rest of you have done all night and go a few seconds over on the most important issue that's been raised.
All right, I had Christopher and then
yeah,
Scott?
Thank you. So, like, actually, I'd like to backtrack a little bit on what I said earlier about the shelter because, I mean, I don't know how I forgot it. It's on the literature that I've been passing out. Like, Utah solved their homelessness problem by very simply giving people places to live, and that's what we need to do. Like, it's the cost of people living on the streets in city services, in incarceration, in emergency room visits, is in the range of $18,000 per person per year. So we will save massive amounts of money by simply signing them up with and making efforts with landlords and rental agencies to let them live somewhere. And yeah, they will need services, but there shouldn't be strings attached. Like, you shouldn't have to pass through hoops in order to get access to that housing. That's right. And so and this is something that we need to really keep saying. And this is an idea that has to happen, or else we're just not going to get anywhere. And so, yeah, thank you for the question.
All right.
Just one, real quick. I agree with Paul on housing first, but, you know, I did housing first. And it takes a toll. You need something else with it. You just can't go housing first. What you need is, you need a group or someone to follow the family around. You know, someone that mentor them, tell them how to live. I mean, you know, a lot of the people that are homeless now probably rent it from me. I'm still getting phone calls from people asking me they need apartments, they need somewhere to stay. And the housing first will work, but with this faith-based partnership thing, it's an additional extension that we can match these faith-based organizations with the actual tenant. And then as a landlord, when I was a landlord, I'll be more willing to take them because I got a whole support network behind them, and it's going to help. But if you just do housing first, you're going to have the same problems I had, and then, you know, what's going to happen is the city going to come at you for code violations after you did housing first. And then what you going to do?
All right.
Yeah,
Scott?
I'm just going to say one piece here. It's about a quality of life. You have individuals that are sleeping in front of City Hall tonight. And my wife, who was, might have got, oh, she's still back there. Yeah, she survived with everybody else, is a therapist with kids with autism, works with people with mental disabilities every single day. You know, when we have conversations like this, and yes, we're very compassionate to try to find housing, but when we treat people with disrespect, when we try to boot them out in front of City Hall, when we try to send them on buses outside of the city, when we try to do everything we can to make life difficult for an individual who is homeless and dealing with situations that's many times beyond their control, that doesn't show compassion. So I think that we need to really start talking also about the quality of life for individuals, regardless of their socioeconomic class in this community. And I miss that at City Hall all the time.
We hear from the other line?
All right.
All power to the people.
All power to the people.
My name is Eric Stephen Upchurch II. I, too, am part of the circle of leaders called Young, Gifted, and Black. And we've recently taken to the streets in a demonstration of power. And I'm going to pick on you, Molly. an example of power and privilege is what we just saw here. Well-meaning people who are in seats have agendas that they hope will benefit the people that they are accountable to. But it turns out that those well-meaning people with great ideas are wrong quite often. We've heard a lot of good ideas here, and my issue is that we are ladled with well-meaning people with good ideas, and those good ideas either fail in the essence of those ideas or they fail in their execution. And partly because there is an issue of expertise. I've had an opportunity to go to the chief of police's first community forum, and one of the major concerns is racial disparities, and I was one of maybe 3 black people in a room of maybe 50. There's an issue of expertise here. I've heard each of you speak on how you will incorporate the people in your decision-making process, and it sounds as if you separate yourself, some of you are separating yourself from the people. And I don't even think this is all that far-fetched. I mean, many of you don't live the lifestyle of those that are affected by the policies you're attempting to enact. So there's an issue, a big issue, of expertise and of power. If you're upset at the disparities that you see and you're uncomfortable, imagine how we feel having generational anger and trauma, being upset and hurt for over 400 years. And even now, having to elect leaders, quote unquote, that lack the expertise to do the job that's needed to be done. So, I'm reminded of a quote by Kwame Ture, and I'm leading to my question. He said, the anticipation is growing, just wait. But Kwame Ture said, if a white man wants to lynch me, that's his problem. If he has the power to do so, it is my problem. Racism is not an issue of attitude, it's an issue of power. So, to my question, I would like for each of you to speak at length on how you were, this is important, this is very important, how you are going to empower the community, or better yet, be held accountable to the community, what that's gonna look like. I've heard all of you say, my hands are tied. That's not an issue that the city handles. That's something for another office. This is our city, and this is my house. The mayor said, we tried to do it, but the county failed. You failed. This is your responsibility. And when you say sorry, you're saying sorry to the wrong people in this warm building. You should be saying sorry to the countless people that are outside shivering cold right now because you failed. My hands are not tied. I am free, in a matter of speaking, because I am part of a circle that has taken power, taken to the streets, and will continue to do so. But I'd like to get some rest sometimes. So how are you going to be held accountable to our people? All power to the people.
All power to the people. All
right, let's hear responses, and we'll take the folks that are left in line, and we're going to be gracious to our hosts, so we'll take everyone left in line, and 2 questions at a time.
We can knock them out. One more question. We got here, so let's do one more.
We can take a bunch of questions and then get answers.
Because I want to go. The line's getting longer.
All right, let's hear some questions, then we'll get a joint.
Let's do 2 at a time.
I really want to answer that question.
Me too. All right, go ahead.
All right, let's be quick. This is good training for Common Council if you're mayor.
I need at least as much time to answer the question as it took to ask it. First, in terms of accountability, let me tell you something. It's one thing to describe the problem. It's another thing to identify the root causes of the problem. But it is even more difficult to implement systems of solutions to solve the problem. I come before you having set up a system that lowered black infant mortality over 7 years to where it was below white infant mortality. I come before you with a system that empowered teenagers, mostly African American, from La Follette High School, to get $300,000 out of the city budget for that transit system. I come before you with success since I've returned to office, similar to what I did before in regards to lowering unemployment, closing the disparity in income, lowering the number of children in Madison schools.
You're not answering the question. How are
you asked for accountability. I'm giving you my record of accountability.
I told people
Now,
we can take.
In terms of empowerment, if you look at the systems we set up, they are predicated not on government leading and running, but they are predicated on the people taking control of their neighborhoods and their lives. If you look at our greatest successes, if you look at the successes at Vera Court, if you look at the successes that we've had on the west side,
Let's get some other responses so we can
it has been successes where our staff, the city people, followed the neighbors who were empowered.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in on that question? All right.
I don't want to follow that, but I'll jump in. One of the things I've noticed, all right, so I had a gentleman for the Edgewater Hotel who was very against the Edgewater. And he wanted what he wanted. And I had a lot of other audiences of people who wanted lots of things. When you're mayor, you have to bring everybody to the table. You have to hear from everyone. You have to see how can you adjust this. And nobody gets exactly what they want. That's how this works. I envy you when you say you're free. I mean, part of the responsibility of this job is you don't get to be free to do exactly everything you always want. You have to work with lots of people, and you have to balance all the interests. One thing that I've noticed, though, is that of 20 city council members, and not counting the student district, I was the only renter. But if you look at the 2010 census, 54% of the city's households are rental households. You look at the city council and the lack of diversity in the city council. So part of it also is you guys have to step up and run. You guys have to come down to City Hall. You have to say, and if the mayor hasn't been putting you on committees that you're applying for, then you need to raise some help, because that's how we have to do this. And the sad reality is that I watched City Hall shut down for 6 weeks, over $230,000, regarding whether or not we should put bike lights on the path. And there was a lot of conversation about the migratory patterns of owls. And for a big chunk of people, that was what they thought City Hall should be shut down over. So we have to balance a lot of needs and a lot of communities. And when you're in this position, you're right. It's not exactly an enviable position.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
We should always choose the side of freedom.
Let me start out by saying I've helped people run for city council, and they were elected. I helped people run for county board. Sheila Stubbs, she was elected, okay? I helped Wayne Strong run for school board, okay? I did all that, all my time, trying to empower our community. I'm running for office right now so we can have a better way. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna continue doing what I've been doing, working in our community, trying to make things better and listening. But what we gotta have is the kind of dialogue that we can sit down and talk about, that we can listen to, that we can have good conversation that's gonna come to meaningful results. And it could happen.
Thank you.
Eric, do you feel empowered in this city? Do you feel like your voice is being listened to, your question being answered in front of us today? It's about accountability, and you are absolutely right. It's about seeing the change that you're talking about. It's making sure that you have a relationship with your government, and you feel, because deep down inside you know your government is out here to actually work for you. It's about putting out good data so not only you see the numbers on the screen to say that we're making progress, but it also means you're seeing the change around you. Because you know if you were to ever message me, and we chat on Facebook, you know I'd respond to you. And you know that's how I would treat you just like everybody else. That's what I bring to the table. And if you ever felt like I wasn't holding up to your standard, I wouldn't be elected. I wouldn't be reelected. But it's about accountability, and you're absolutely right, and that's what this election is about.
I have a brief announcement. There's a Toyota Sequoia that is parking in some folks that want to leave. So if that's your vehicle, could you please? All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right.
So I guess I'll repeat that question. Do you feel your question has now been answered, Eric? No, not at all. I didn't think so. So I know what it's like to live on very little. I've been making about $9,000 a year for the last 3 years, working in retail, and like I have felt the squeeze, and this is it's not very real for people who own their own companies or who have occupied positions of power before. So somebody asked me the other day what it is that I love to do, and the first thing that came to mind was I like to read. I like to learn, and so this is the way that I would empower people, the way that I would set up systems would be in a dynamic way, in a way that, I mean, it has been said, yes, bring in outside input. I would like to seek a greater financial self-determination for neighborhoods by empowering neighborhood committees, by both financially and giving them actual real political power. Like there was a discussion over the last few weeks about there is a building that was being proposed, and the neighborhood committee had said we don't want this building proposed, and the council overrode that. And they weren't listened to. And I think participatory budgeting is another way. We can allow like neighborhood committees to the power to set their own budgets and give them a chunk of the budget. And I would be very happy to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. All right.
All right.
Matthew.
My name is Matthew Browngen. My question is a little multifaceted. It's really laying on education. I know, Scott, you mentioned as far as the first 1,000 days are very important. Childcare, I mean, this comes from somebody that doesn't have kids, but childcare is ridiculously expensive. And then when you want to look at even beyond, especially early child development, so much of education is reliant upon things that happen outside of the home. And the lack of education during the summer. When we look at our unrepresented communities, our black communities here in Madison, they don't have access to the same type of camps or learning opportunities that a lot of their more well-off white peers can go to. I know there's a lot of stuff that Boys and Girls Club does, and working with the People program, we do, and other communities and base solutions. But at the same time, we only hit a small population of our minorities here in Madison. So what are you guys looking to do to address really the lack of childcare, affordable childcare for families of need, and in making sure that students in elementary, middle, and high school can bridge their summer and actually take something away instead of continually falling behind each and every summer that they are out of school?
Who wants to jump in?
I'll start first. I know this is Scott's thing. Child care. Child care is good. You know, and we do need good child care, and that's really important. But, man, it's deeper than child care. It's a lot deeper. You know, we got single parents that are struggling just to handle their sons that are 15 years old and 14. Some of them are scared of them. The kids are getting big, and they're doing what they want to do, and they're actually standing up to their moms, calling them names and doing all kinds of things, you know? And it stems from maybe a lot more than child care, man.
I don't know. When I was 15, 16, I stood up to my parents quite a lot, and I called them I mean, there's times that my dad and I almost came to blows.
Right.
And, You know, I'm sure a lot of y'all know my father.
I mean, I like childcare, and I think it's good. But, you know, I think maybe the most important thing is trying to keep the kid as close to the mom when they're young as they can. What we need is, we need to figure out a way how to keep the family together so the mom can stay home with the child. We got to figure out a way how we can help that single parent.
Single parent.
I'm not saying that, or maybe, or the dad. Or the dad stay home with the child, one or the other.
CDC just came out with a study, though, that black males are more involved in their children's lives than white males.
Thank you.
And this is regardless of marriage. Marriage does not necessarily mean a strong family. There are plenty of rich white families that do not have strong families. A strong family does not have to be marriage. It does not have to mean the mom stays home. It does not have to mean the dad is the one working and providing. Strong families is different than that.
It's a debate?
It's more than that.
Do you want to hear from some other candidates on this?
Yes. Sorry.
Anybody?
I'm sure Mayor Soglin never disagreed with his parents at any point. I look at each one of them. Actually, I shouldn't have made that comment. No. What it goes back to is making sure that everyone is on equal footing. When you start school, and those first 1,000 days of life are critical. We've looked at the best pathways forward, and I've looked at models in Virginia Beach, which made sure that what they saw was the same person who's the best person to nurture someone isn't necessarily the best person to start a business of a child care. It's about putting together seed funding to make sure that we can get new child care facilities open in the city of Madison. It's about making sure that we have affordable vouchers to make sure that everybody is on the equal path footing forward. It's about working with our community partners in the nonprofit community to make sure that they're supporting it. Because the reality that I know is right now there's wait lists.
Thank you.
That there's 18 months, 20 months to get affordable child care.
Should I just go down the line here?
Thank you.
Awesome. Matt, it's really frustrating because we don't have the money. We don't have the money. It's not that we can't do it because we don't want to do it. It's we can't do it because there's so much that we could do. And looking at our library program, if you want money to be taken out from the jail, then you need to go talk with the people who control the purse strings to that money. I cannot in good faith sit here and promise you things that I cannot deliver on. So, I think that there's a lot we could be doing. The Madison out of school time, you look at the website, it hasn't been updated since August. I went on to go read up and look at it. You look at places like St. Paul, Minnesota, and what they have done, and I had a friend who was on the city council there, there's so much more that we can and should be doing with the school district to partner that we're not doing. You look at how MSCR is all within the realm of the school district, right? But they're all city facilities. There's so much more in cost savings that we can gain if we actually partner with the school district on a lot of these fronts, and if we partner with the county, especially with social services. And that especially extends to summertime. And I saw a number of those students at Badger Rock Middle School this summer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to say that I would be open to suggestions on this this question. I don't have a map in my head of where I would go, but I mean it would start with the last bit that Bridget just said made a lot of sense to me. Working with the school district, working with the county, seeking available funds where they can be got. So I don't have a direct answer, and I'm happy to admit that.
All right, thanks.
I'm not happy, but I will grudgingly admit that.
Thank you.
I'm kind of surprised that nobody's addressed what's already going on in Madison and Dane County. Through the auspices of United Way and in partnership with private sector, with nonprofits in the city, there's the Born Learning Mobilization Plan, and everybody should be familiar with that. And that plan is designed for early childhood development on the issues exactly.
They need more money.
What they do need more money, and they've made some very significant strides in the last 12 months. But through the Born Learning Mobilization Plan, there's effort underway. I only got 20 seconds. Anyway, learn about that. In terms of St. Paul, Bridget, they're 5 years ahead of us. I don't know what was going on in 2008, 2009, 2010, when the rest of the country was focused on out-of-school time, but we got the city going 2 years ago, and we are now underway to develop a really meaningful program that is going to add to the educational benefits of all of our kids, as I said earlier, after school, weekends, and during vacations.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Should we take our last questions?
Okay, yeah. I'm Ciara.
Hi.
My question is, what are you going to do about racial disparities in the schools when it comes to teachers and students, and teachers making unconscious decisions that affect students of color? And also, how are we going to keep police out of jails? Out of schools, sorry.
All right. Who wants to take that? Bridget?
Yeah. I started hearing about a lot of the feedback that parents are having and starting to think about what can we do with the Department of Civil Rights. I think that there's absolutely a place there that we should and can have a liaison to the schools. One of the things, and I just found this out today because I was trying to do my research and homework for this debate. In 2012, the school district sued the city, or was in the process of, and there were pending court cases, and the city signed documents it was May of 2012 to sort of agree that the city did not have jurisdiction over the school district and the education environments. That was amazing to learn, and I am furious at it, and I just found this out. I don't remember, Scott, I don't remember anything ever coming before the city council. I tried to pull the committee meetings to look at it. It was kept very internal, and now the city's hands are tied to be able to say, we can go in and look at civil rights issues in the schools.
Bridget, come on now. The city attorney went under state statute and ruled that we couldn't do it. So don't make it sound like the city voluntarily surrendered jurisdiction on a civil rights matter. That was the city attorney's opinion under state statute.
But we didn't go to court over it.
Then you go fire the city attorney, okay?
Anyone else? Should we take the next question?
I'll make one quick comment. I don't believe that police have any place in our schools. That's all I have to say on it.
I just want to say it was a great question, and it's stuff like that where we have young kids that are engaging into what's going on in the community. What I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to the kids.
All right. Next question.
I'm not sure if it'll come out as a question, but it is a statement. We're sitting here speaking about homeless, prison. Let's look at homeless and prison, and let's look outside our doors and realize that it starts in the schools. I know for a fact that kids are graduating with D averages, and they get the D averages because they're pushed to play the sports in the schools. Mind you, that they're making money for the schools when they're playing the sports. So they're sliding by to play the sports for the coaches, the school, to make the money that they have to make. And then when they get the scholarships to go to school with the athletic, when they get to go to school with the athletic scholarships, majority of the kids I have seen last year are back. And where are they? They're on the streets because they didn't have the education that they were supposed to have, that they have a right to have, to go into the schools and even have a good placement in the college system. They over here at MATC pounding the wall, the police are outside ready to arrest them, and they have tears in their eyes. Big 300-pound black African-American young men at the time that cannot pass the compass test to get into an MATC career that they want to have. So then they have to go and take another English class that they're supposed to take in high school, a math class they're supposed to take in algebra. For real, you're a senior and you're needing to take algebra at MATC. So that's just to tell you what is going on in the schools. And I know you're saying you can't do anything about it, but somebody better jump up and do something about it. Because I have a senior this year, and I've been fighting since he was in the 5th grade. And everyone knows me. My name is Shakia Turner. I have too many kids up in the school system that I will not allow them to fail. And I don't see why you guys can't help and show us the way of what we need to do. Because all this control stuff that they have at Madison Metropolitan School District, I've sat in on plenty of them meetings, but I wasn't invited to certain meetings where a parent can voice their opinion. They have certain parents in those meetings that they hand pick to give their decisions out. And sending, let me jump back to where I'm at. And then I've heard about the plans that they have for the schools. I've sat in those meetings, and they have this new, I'm gonna call it Cheatham, documents where parents are supposed to be involved, kids are accountable for themselves. They have all these things that are supposed to be in line with your student, but the teachers are not, they have no high expectations for our children. No one is accountable for what they're doing in the classroom, and our kids are getting put out of the class, sitting in the hall, in detention. I thought detention was gone a long time ago when I graduated. And mind you, if I'm standing here 38 years old and graduated from Madison Metropolitan School District with a D GPA. So that goes to show you what is going on. I don't know what you guys are gonna do. I came from Mississippi with a different cultural dialect, but the biggest piece is not only my accent, it was how I looked. It was my appearance. Your teachers are intimidated by our kids, and that shouldn't happen. They need the training. You're constantly saying all these things that you see in other states of what's working. Those teachers are trained, and they know, and they have the wherewithal to work with any child of any different race. And I just feel like you guys need to pull together, or whoever becomes Mayor Paul. I respect you, but I don't know what's going on, and maybe I'm looking at things to come from you that cannot come from you, and I wish you can explain that you have no power to go and sit in a board meeting and tell them anything. They're paying top dollars for people to come in and tell them to change the code of conduct because it affects the African-American kids. They're still disrespecting our children, they're still belittling them, and they still have no high expectations for them. You can have a child with AIDS, and they'll tell that child, oh, the community college is good for you, okay? So I just want you guys to understand that in this community here, and maybe somewhere, but I know about the South Side and what's going on in these schools, is that there is no high expectation for our kids, and there is racism in the school. And that's what we need to really point out, that they're very racist towards our kids, they're intimidated by them, and what do you expect us to do if we're sending them to school? Parental involvement, please ask them the question of what parental involvement is for them. Because I have been in schools, and I am not as loud as I am up here right now, but I have been in those schools, I have volunteered, I have sat in the library, I have copied their papers. And for them to tell me that the teachers are intimidated and they don't want to have a student-parent conference with me as my child's advocate, something is going wrong, and they're setting our kids up for failure, and it needs to stop. Or you're going to continue to have homeless out here, and you're going to allow the school district to send our children to prison. But mine is not going, and none of the other ones are going to go if I can stand in front of the jail, and y'all can knock me down and lock me up.
All right, let's hear from our candidates.
I'd like to answer that. So, thank you. Power counts for something, and presence counts for something. And like, I have been labeled an activist, and I think that it is activists' duty to go and to be heard and to be present, and like exactly what you're doing right now. And this is how changes do get made. And as mayor, that is what I would do. I would, even if you say that you can't influence the decision that's being made because it's not within your jurisdiction, it's not your given power, that doesn't matter, because we can still be there and we can still speak out, and we can contact the media. We can do so many things, and so many things which some people think are too politically damaging, which are too risky, and things that will make you labeled in like this way or another way. But I'm not afraid of that, and I won't be afraid of that.
Thank you.
Just real quick, for the past 3 years, I get up at 5:30 in the morning, catch a 6 o'clock bus, go to East High School, and run the weight room for the football team. We require that they do a Tuesday report, and we're real hard on them. I know East High School, we make sure that they turn in their Tuesday report, they went to all the classes and they did all the things that they need to do. But what I'm saying is, I agree with you that we need to have a presence in the school. We need to be there. But when we go to the schools and we have a presence in the schools, we got to be there helping. We got to encourage and help. And that's what I do every time I go in. We got to make a presence. We definitely got to be there, because I'm the only African-American coach that was at East High School. And we had 2 kids that just got scholarships, and they are going to college. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to follow them around, and I'm going to go to their games. I'm going to do what I can to make sure that they succeed.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, let's take our last 2 questions.
I'm in the school, and I was emailed by one of the teachers that was not in my child's class to tell the other teacher that I shouldn't be in the school because it intimidates other children in the school that parents cannot be there. So.
All right, let's hear from our last 2 questions. Please.
My question is, first is targeted to Paul Soglin, but anybody can answer. But you spoke earlier about our young people and where they're being arrested, and you said that they're arrested in the malls, at the transfer points, and at schools. And so what I want to know is, if that's the case, if that's where the most arrests are happening in Madison, where people are most arrested, then why is there a high concentration of police on the South Side? Why is there a higher concentration of police in low-income Black neighborhoods? And what are you going to do to transfer some of those police, and so that low-income Black communities are policed in the same way that white communities are?
Equity in policing.
All right.
Equity in policing is providing safety to the people of the neighborhoods of the city. Actually, the greatest police presence in the city is downtown. It's on State Street and around the campus. That's where the greatest police presence is.
So are you saying there's not a lot of police on the South Side? Is that what you're saying?
I'm telling you that the districts are assigned on a geographic...
What are you going to do to address the over-policing on the South Side in low-income Black neighborhoods? What are you going to do to address that?
Can I finish?
Yes, if you answer my question. Don't dance around my question. I'm not going to play games.
Your assumption is incorrect. Your assumption is incorrect.
That low-income Black neighborhoods are over-policed?
That is correct.
Okay. Hey.
Sometimes there are more police than people in the park.
We can't have an event, Juneteenth. There are more and more police. There's become more police than people. There are less and less people coming because they say there's too many police at the event. We can't even enjoy a historical event. An event that's supposed to be celebrate freedom, because we're being over-policed. Talk to me about that. What are you going to do about that? And, feel free to the rest of the audience.
I think what we're getting at is the heart of community policing, and my guess is we've got a fundamental disagreement about the role of the police in a community. Matt?
That's what we're doing right here. That's what you get to do February 17th. That's why we have all the candidates here answering your questions. We have one last question, then we're going to call it a night.
All right, Paul, you've mentioned many times your employment initiative programs. I run one of your employment initiative programs. The unions have not changed. The contractors have not changed. The employers have not changed. I am on a daily basis trying to educate individuals from my community to get jobs in industries that are not changing. In Seattle, Washington, their city ordinance, they demanded that if contractors, that employers, if they not obtain and retain people of color and women, that they do not get contracts, that they do not get city funding, that they cannot exist in their city if they are not doing for their city. So my question, do not cut me off, Paul. My question is, as someone who is running for mayor What do you plan to do to hold these industries accountable for the money that you are giving them? To employ the people that do have the skills, that have the knowledge, that have the will to work and want to work in this city. Because me training people in a 6-week schedule and telling them that you can get a job, but them being discriminated against on that job, them being hazed on those jobs, it's not going to keep them there. It's not empowering them. So what do you plan to do to hold the people that you give billions of dollars to?
What program are you specifically referring to that you work on?
It doesn't matter, Paul. Just know I run one. It doesn't matter.
Oh, if you tell me what program.
I just said it does not matter.
Okay.
It's all of them.
Then you know about
it. It is all of them.
But you're working on one of our programs?
I run it.
So you know about the disparity study and what's going on there?
Yes.
You know about that?
Yes.
Now, you...
It is that simple. I just gave you the answer. Seattle, Washington has done it. You all have brought them in here many times.
How did Seattle do it?
Time and time
How did Seattle and Portland do it?
Changed their ordinances.
How did Seattle and Portland do it?
Paul,
okay.
How did Seattle and Portland do it?
You are the one in
Seattle?
power. So why aren't you?
Are you going to let
it?
me finish?
You keep asking me a question.
All right. I'm going to answer the question how Seattle and Portland did it. They did it with a...
We're here to hear from the candidates. Let's let them speak.
I made a decision when I embarked to deal with issues of social justice, to deal with reality, to deal with where I could make a difference. Now, we've already discussed some of the changes and some of the areas where we've had success. What Seattle and Portland did was they did a disparity study. Because under the law and because of the decisions of the Supreme Court, principally appointed by Ronald Reagan and the first Bush, the affirmative action and the contract compliance programs that we had in place were ruled unconstitutional. But it was determined that if you did a disparity study and you could prove that there was not proportional awarding of these contracts, you could then do what Seattle and Portland did. A year and a half ago, a group came together, led by 100 black men, in the Latino Chamber of Commerce. We've been meeting regularly, actually it was closer to 2 years ago. We found a way of raising $500,000, which is what it costs to do a disparity study. We hired a firm. They have been working now, and they should complete their work sometime in the next 3 or 4 months. Depending on the finding of that disparity study, we will then have the legal tools to adopt the ordinances so we could accomplish what these other cities have done. That's what we did when I went to work for you in 2011. That's why we should be thankful for the work of 100 black men in the Latino Chamber of Commerce. That's where the work was getting done on a regular basis, without reporters, without television cameras, and that's how we're going to answer your question. It's being done right now.
I'm telling you right now, I'm on the ground every single day, and we don't see that. I'm asking you to address what I face every single day.
It's now 9 o'clock. We've been here for an extra hour in this facility that graciously gave us the time and space to have this conversation. This doesn't have to end here. This doesn't have to end. The election for primaries on the 17th. Then there'll be a general election. There's also another forum on the north side. And Monday. Yes. So there are plenty of opportunities. This isn't the only one. Thank you.
Regarding police issues, in case you know, quickly this week, Chief Covell
Yes.
do. He's having nightly meetings regarding specifically policing issues. So while we don't want to accuse us the mayor or the candidates on this issue, let's go to those meetings as well. Without having nightly meetings.
Great, thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you for everyone.